So you've owned your own business for 45 or even 50 years. You may have even inherited it. And your children are not even interested in being part of this business. And it's now time for you to start some new adventures in life. So how do you go about doing this? Today on Insights for Entrepreneurs, we're going to be speaking with Warren Morten of Bear Down Brokerage and the Morten Law Group in Irvine, California. Let's go in and meet with Warren. Hi, Warren.
Hey, Janice, good to see you.
Nice seeing you, too.
Likewise.
Welcome to Insights with Entrepreneurs. I'm so glad that you're joining us today.
Well, Janice, nice to see you. Thank you for having me and look forward to having a discussion with you.
Well, let's talk about how you got here.
Way back as a child when I was born in South Africa, moved around a bit, eventually landed here in Orange County. Went through lots of school, got a degree in economics, degree in math, law degree, tax degree. Started working for law firms, then I became general counsel of a $1 billion a year company and decided, you know what? Lots of other people need help like these companies can, but they don't need somebody full-time. So I just went out and started a law firm that could do that for people.
Let's talk a little bit about you're active with your family.
Yep.
One of the things that in reading your bio, that I really liked talking was that you like to cook, and you love having family gatherings.
Yep. Cooking is one of my creative outlets, and it's nice because you don't have to store it. People eat it, they're enjoying it, and do it again.
Yes. And the other thing, your creativity that I've seen here in your office has been all these beautiful pictures that you have of the Southern California coast.
We as a family love the beach, so like to bring the beach into the office and the artwork.
Yeah, well, you're not far from the beach anyway, so that's really good. Also, you've received a lot of different awards, so I want to congratulate you because I know you've received the Southern California Super Lawyers Award, which I understand only 5% of lawyers even get to this, to be recognized, and you've been recognized from 2024, 25, and going into 26. That's a major accomplishment.
Thank you. It is a testament to the work we do here.
Yes. And also, you've been recognized as a rising star within the law industry from 2017 to 2021. Very good accolades for you, okay? One of the other things that I find really interesting is that your clients find you to be more than a lawyer. They find you to be a good counselor that listens to them, becoming friends with you, and they love the way that you can go about taking a complex situation and putting it into practical terms and coming up with solutions that they understand and that they have peace of mind.
100%. It's very important to become or create a relationship with your clients so you know what they're really looking for. Sometimes they come in and ask for a question that's, they just read that on the internet, but they really need something else. So until you understand their background and that relationship, it's hard to give that good service.
With your vast experience of law and business, you've now started the Morten Law Group, and you're a co-founder of the Bear Brokerage. So how did that happen?
So I started Morten Law Group now 11, 12 years ago. And like I said, I was working for a lot of smaller private companies and clients going into business, selling businesses. And I was doing a lot of the legal work for these transactions when people are buying and selling their businesses. And 2 years ago, I was working with a wonderful broker, Doug, and we're working on a transaction together. We decided, you know what? Let's team up together and start Bear Down Brokerage. I already had the license. He's got lots of contacts, and we said we can provide these services to my ongoing clients and his clients and bring everything under one roof, make it simpler and easier for the clients.
I think that was a great idea. And I know if I wanted to go sell my business or even buy a business, I wouldn't even know where to start. And doing my research, selling a business is so complex. I thought selling a house was complex, but it's nothing compared to selling a business. How do you go about selling a business?
So selling a business has got to start with the first thing. Are you ready to sell your business? Many people think, okay, I want to sell my business, and they get into a transaction or going down there. cold feet. I don't really want to sell my business. A lot of people have been working their business since they were much younger, and that's a lot of their identity. So the very first step is saying, okay, I really am ready to sell. And that's when you can start the process. And from there, you got to make sure the business is ready for sale. A lot of people want to say, well, I've been in the business for the last 40 years. I am the whole business. I am so important to the business. That's not a business, that's a job. If you can't step out of the business and let it run without you, it's very hard to sell. I always tell my clients when they're ready to sell, try and work yourself out of a job. Start hiring people or promoting people, making sure the business can run while you're on vacation for 6 months. If that's the case, you now have a very sellable business.
Well, if you're selling a business, but what happens, let's go back real quick, your children want to go into your business. That's a whole different story.
That's a whole different story, and that can be wonderful and terrible all at the same time. You know, are there children or grandchildren that want to take over the business? Are there grandchildren or children that can take over the business? Just because one of them wants to take it over doesn't mean they have the ability to, and sometimes the one that's able to wants to do their own thing. So it's very important to start early with your family if you want them to take it over. And there's a famous story out there between the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts. About the same time, they had the equivalent of $200 billion in family wealth, going back to the 1870s. By 1970, 100 years later, Vanderbilts had almost no money left in the family. Not a single one of them was a millionaire. But the Rockefellers still had billions, and all their children, grandchildren, descendants are very, very wealthy people. And the big difference was the Rockefellers made sure that there were annual or more meetings a year that everybody who was going to be a beneficiary trustee had to go to, had to understand the business, were trained in the business. Carnegie's thought, okay, well, we'll just take care of everybody, let them do their thing. Didn't bring anybody into the business, and those that got the money didn't appreciate the effort that goes into maintaining it.
So when I'm getting ready to sell a business, how do I start getting ready? I mean, I'm looking at it. Do my books need to be in order? If I have equipment, do they need to be in order? I mean,
so you want to make
where do I begin?
You got to start at the very beginning and make sure that everything that is in the business is buttoned up. So like you said, machinery, make sure the machinery is working. Especially if it's a business that's heavy on equipment or production. You want to make sure you talked about the books, make sure the books look good. Most people that own business want to show that they make no profit at the end of the year so they don't pay taxes. Wonderful. Not wonderful for selling your business because it's hard to show value. And a lot of times we can do forensic accounting saying, okay, well, this expense for the trip to Maui wasn't really for business, it was your vacation. This car went to your son, not a business expense. We can put it back in and show that some of those expenses should be counted towards profit and therefore in the valuation. But if you want to sell it, and especially want to sell it to a private equity firm or venture capital firm or a larger place, they're going to want to see those books and records clean for a few years before, and not just picking and choosing what we call seller discretionary income.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a
Okay. I mean, I'm right there. I'm like, where do I start? And that's why people hire brokerage.
That's why people would hire bear down brokers. We can come in and say, okay, let's look at what your books say. Let's look at what your assets are. Let's see the best way to value it. Sometimes we want to do it on the assets and call it an asset sale. Take all the fixtures, furnitures, and other things you own, even customer lists, and use that as the value. Sometimes we're going to say, look, you're making a ton of money. There's not a lot of assets. It's just a bunch of contracts. Let's value it based on the income you're producing.
That is a lot to take in at this point in time, but I want to go into another part of it. So if I'm selling my business, confidentiality, that should be an important part of that too.
Confidentiality is huge. Not just because you have secrets, but you want to maintain your competitive advantage. If you let everybody know that you're going out of business, selling, maybe your competitors are going to try and swoop in and do something else, or maybe the employees get wind of it and say, you know what, maybe the company's going, maybe it's not, I'm going to leave before I lose my job. People don't like instability, so if you keep it quiet, nobody knows what's going on, and you can sell it nicely. Throw the party afterwards, not before.
That's definitely don't have the party before. Because I think your employers, if you're employing employees, you need to have their trust.
Yep.
If you've been in business for 40 or 45 years, They may have been there for a long time, so that being uncomfortable.
And when employees are uncomfortable, nobody's working at their capacity, and then all of a sudden you see slight decline in income, and that scares buyers.
Now, so do you want to know what your business, even though I'm selling the business, but I want to know what's happening with it afterwards, or I may want to play a small part in it. What do you recommend in that?
So every situation is very unique. Most people who want to sell their business want to get out, but a lot of times the buyers want to keep the sellers in for a year, 2 years, 3 years, so that they can get trained and to make sure, well, the seller goes, are the contracts going to go? Are the customers going to keep coming? Let's keep the seller here for a little bit so that we can feel good as buyers. But as sellers, most deals in mid-market, that's 5 to 50 million, has some sort of financing. A lot of times it's done by the seller. So the seller wants to know who the buyer is too. Is the buyer going to be able to perform and pay me or pay the loans so that my business and my legacy is not destroyed?
I know that I had my stepdaughter and her husband sold an IT business, and he didn't work in the business afterwards, but he couldn't work in that industry for a certain amount of years. Is that common?
That is common. It's called a non-compete. And in California, traditionally non-competes are categorically unenforceable, but that's only with employees and contractors. When you're selling a business, it's the only time it's enforceable, and the buyer can say, I'm buying it from you. You can't compete with me for a limited period of time. And generally it has to be within a geographic region and a specific industry. It can't just be everything.
Because I know he was waiting okay, my 5 years is up. I'm so excited. And he went on to do something else.
Beautiful.
Yes. So, but when I'm selling a business, I'm getting my business ready. You mentioned buyers. So how do I attract the correct buyers to my business?
So that's generally what you leave your broker to, right? And the broker's going to work with you, and they're going to go out looking for that buyer. Sometimes you will know the buyer better than the broker will, because sometimes the best buyer is somebody else that's in your industry doing the exact same thing down the street. Generally, the owner that's dealing with that competitor is the one that knows the competitor the best. And if there's an advantage to that person, they may pay more than the third party off the street that's just getting it to start.
So how do I know I have a credible buyer? What am I expecting from the buyer, and what are the buyers expecting from me as the seller?
So the seller would like to see from the buyer the ability to pay and close the transaction. So are there funds in the bank? Does the buyer have a loan lined up? Do they have somebody that can take over the business and run it when they buy it? Those are things you want to see. I'd also want to go see the buyer's resume. Have they owned businesses like this before? Do they get in and file bankruptcy right after? Those are things you want to look at, and the buyer's going to want to look at similar things from the seller. Show me your tax returns. Show me your balance sheet. Show me your vendor list, your invoices. You can tell me all these things, let's verify it.
For me as the seller, my buyer, what am I looking for? I'm not quite sure.
So you'd be looking for the buyer's resume, the buyer's ability to close, the buyer's ability to get the loan. Make sure that the buyer has the capacity to run that business and pay you what you want.
Now, I was reading somewhere where it was telling me that as a seller, I can also finance part of my buyer's purchase, which to me is a smart move as long as I have that kind of money available.
Well, so when you're financing the buyer's purchase of your business, it's not that you're giving them any money. It's that you're not taking all the money up front, and they'll pay you slowly over time. And that's wonderful. Like I was saying earlier, that's very common in the mid-market businesses, 5 to 50 million in sales, because they're hard to get loans for, and the seller's going to be incentivized to stay there while they're getting paid. So a lot of times they won't even call it seller financing anymore. They'll give it as a seller independent contractor agreement. We'll pay you $5,000 a month to stay on board and answer questions. So it doesn't look quite like a promissory note, but they're generally one and the same.
Okay. So do you have anything else? And when you're going through escrow and the closing of escrow, is there anything that the seller needs to be doing and paying attention to?
Yep. So during escrow, that's when we generally do what we call the due diligence period. And during that period, the seller's going to want to bring all their documents together, bring everything the buyer's asking for so they can verify what's been told to them ahead of time. Generally, the buyer has a contingency they can get out if the documentation comes up and it doesn't match what they were told early on.
Do you have anything else you want to add to this that we haven't covered?
Be reasonable. So many people think they have a business that's worth 10 million, and it's probably worth $1.5 million or $2 million. And if you're expecting to get 10 million and the business is on the market for 5 years, you'll probably get less than you would have if you marketed at 5 and gotten 5 earlier on. People don't like businesses that sit on the market. They're like, what is wrong with it? Why has nobody else bought it?
So it's important to actually know the valuation of your business.
Know the valuation and be reasonable with the valuation. There are so many ways to value a business that you can make a straight-faced argument that one business is worth 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, depending on which way you want to value it, but it's the same business. And at the end of the day, a business is only worth what somebody is willing to pay for it.
That's true. In anything you want to sell.
One other quick story.
Sure.
We're working with a client right now. It's a very nice landscaping company. And they have contracts with large municipalities and HOAs. And when we first met them, we were going to list the business. It was going to be worth probably 6 or 7 times what it is worth today. They drug their feet deciding whether they wanted to sell it, not sell it, right? Like I was talking about the cold feet. Some people are just not ready to do it. And the time they pulled the trigger and said, let's sell it, they had lost 30% of their contracts. So the value of the business went down significantly.
Again, that goes back to valuation.
Mm-hmm. And the valuation can change. The value today may not be the same in 6 months.
Well, one other thing is that if you're getting ready to sell a business, it's important for the owner to be just as active as he was prior to wanting to sell the business.
Yes, but only on the transaction side. Because if we can get the owner outside of being active inside the business is worth more.
I have some questions on that.
Okay.
Because one of the things why I would want to be with a broker is because I would want to keep my business going and let the broker doing all the worries. Would that be a correct assumption to make?
Now, the owner can't step aside and just let it fall apart. But like I said earlier in the segment, the owner should be trying to work themselves out of a day-to-day job and just be managing. That's when the business is worth the most money.
I have a one-person business. It's not really have much value once I leave.
Once you leave, it doesn't have that much value, but you are in a specific business where it does, because you have Medicare and other types of sales that have recurring revenue, so you can sell that book of business. But if you had a system that did all the work and that revenue, significantly more.
Thank you for all your words of wisdom.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on Insights with Entrepreneurs. It's been good talking with you. If anybody has any comments that they would like to make, please comment and send them to us. We have all the information is available for the show. Either Warren or I would love to answer any questions that you have, and we look forward to them. Warren, thank you very much again for being on Insights with Entrepreneurs, and everybody join us again next week.